Hello and welcome to Canguro English. My name is Christian and today is Sunday! The best day of the week. Today I'm going to be answering the question, how can you learn English like a baby? How can you get fluent like children do in English? And actually, this is one of the great, big, important questions in linguistics. Why is it that children are just so good at learning languages? I mean, think about it. As an adult, you have an incredible cognitive advantage, right? You're better at problem solving, you have more general knowledge, you have more cognitive power, you're just smarter in every single way than a baby. In every single way. So why can't you use this power to learn a language? Well, actually the reason, and this is probably the surprising reason, the reason is that you know too much. Especially you know too much about language, right? Especially your own language. So first let's imagine language from the perspective of a baby.
You say mama, mama, mom. Baby, you're making the movements. Just say mama. 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 Mama.
So babies don't know anything about language. They don't know the difference between nouns and verbs and adjectives and prepositions. They don't understand about future tense and past tense. All they hear is sound. Continuous sound. This big, long noise, right? And think about it. Maybe it's a question you've never really thought about. How do babies and children, how do they know what you're talking about, right? How do they know how to take a noun, a word for a thing? How do they know how to take that out of a sentence? How do they learn verbs when it's all just joined together, right? The answer is that they don't. So I want to talk about another language which is very alien, not just to people who speak English or another European language, but it's alien to almost everybody on the planet, okay? Because there's a group of languages that is, the way they work is very, very, very rare, okay? They're called polysynthetic languages. And one of those languages is Cherokee, which is a language spoken by some Native American people in the United States, in North America. And I want to give you an example of a word from that language. Okay, the word is ditiohihi. I love saying that word, it sounds great. Ditiohihi, okay? Now, ditiohihi is a word that means lawyer. It's a word for lawyer. You go to court, you know, there's the judge, you're in the courtroom, and standing next to you is your ditiohihi, right? The person who represents you. But what is the actual translation of that word into English, like the literal translation? Well, it means a person who argues repeatedly and deliberately and for a reason. Think about it. All of that information, right, and that's a lot of information, all of that information is contained in that one single word. Ditiohihi, 5 syllables, 10 letters. How? Because the way the language works is very different. They don't have words, okay? The way that it works is you have, you know, this kind of base which you manipulate with suffixes and prefixes and you manipulate the phonemes and you create this one continuous word with all of this information inside. It's incredible. Okay? So to a baby hearing that language, they will never learn about words because words don't exist. Not in the same way that we know them, right? They're never going to learn about verbs the way that we understand them because it doesn't exist. They're never going to learn about tenses, past and future, because it doesn't exist in the same way in the Cherokee language, right? So, really, and this is a kind of, controversial or strange way of looking at language, the way that we have decided to divide language, the way that we have decided to categorize language, really is kind of arbitrary. It's a decision we made to say, well, these are nouns and these are verbs and we do this and that. It's not necessary to do that to learn a language. And if you were trying to learn Cherokee, you would have to radically change the way that you think about language. And a Cherokee baby trying to learn English would have to radically change the way that they think about language. So what's the solution? What does this tell us about the question? Is how can you learn a language like a child, like a baby? Well, I want to talk about this great piece of research, okay, from the Journal of Memory and Language. The paper is called The Advantage of Starting Big. Learning from unsegmented input facilitates mastery of grammatical gender in an artificial language, by Noam Siegelman and Inbal Anand. And this is just an example of lots of similar work. Okay, this is not isolated. There's lots of work about this subject. Okay, so what they did was they had different groups of people and they wanted to teach them an artificial language. They wanted to teach them a language that they invented. And this language has grammatical gender, like Spanish, which is a language that I speak. And as a native English speaker, learning Spanish, I have a problem with grammatical gender, right? It's like the masculine feminine of the noun and I always get it wrong, and also for me it's difficult to accept that it's necessary. It's not necessary to know if this is masculine or feminine. It doesn't need, right? So, I have to adapt to the way that Spanish works. And the way that most people approach language learning, the way that it's taught in a lot of classrooms, the way that it's taught in grammar books, okay, the way that they study your success at language learning in exams, the whole system is designed for you to break language into basically words, into chunks, right? So we're like, okay, we're going to test you on articles. Do you know the difference between a and the? We're going to test you on your tenses. Do you know which verb to put in this hole? Is it present perfect or past perfect or, right? So most students are accustomed to viewing language in little chunks, little pieces, right? But what they did in this experiment is they didn't. They taught adults chunks, whole chunks. Instead of teaching them that, mano is the word for hand in Spanish, and that it's a feminine word, so when you think about mano, you have to say la. No, they taught them that this is la mano, all together in one chunk. And guess what? You ready? We show that learning from unsegmented input leads to more article-noun units and to better learning. The findings provide novel evidence for the advantage of learning grammar from multi-word units. That's how children learn language, because children don't know what words are. They learn that later, right? Children learn chunks, big long chunks. And so your advantage of knowing more stuff, your advantage of understanding the categories of nouns and verbs is actually your huge disadvantage, because you focus on the little pieces of language. But what you should be doing is pulling back and looking at language in chunks, right? Or as the name of the paper says, starting big. And I'll give you a simple example in English, right? So in English we have this structure to make equal comparisons, okay? And the structure is the something, the something. For example, the bigger the better, the faster the more dangerous, the hungrier the more angry, right? Okay, so it's about equal comparison. When the first thing goes up, the other thing also goes up. When the first thing goes down, the other thing always goes down. Where does the meaning come from? Okay, does the meaning come from the article the? No. Does the meaning come from the comparative adjective that you use in that position? No. The meaning comes from the whole construction put together. Analyzing the parts of the construction don't help you to really understand. Understanding is the key here. Not superficial memorization, but real, true understanding. And understanding that the structure, the construction is what gives language the meaning, not the individual pieces, okay? So if you want to get fluent, if you want to try to regain some of that advantage that you have as a smart adult, then please stop looking at language as little pieces, okay? Because it's not. That's something that you learnt to do at school, something you learnt to do from the way the language learning industry works. But it's not the best way, okay? Not the most efficient, and it won't lead to success. And just one final thing, okay, which is maybe the biggest advantage that children have over adults, apart from this, is that children have curiosity. They're always asking why. You know, anyone who's had a 5-year-old in the house is very quickly annoyed by why. But why? Why is it like that? Why? That's how you need to approach your language learning. Why? Why? It's not enough to know. You have to know why. And the why questions, the more you ask why, the deeper you go, is actually where you find the most interesting things. You know, the most important, fundamental parts of the way that language works. So please be curious and start big, not small. I'm Christian, this is Canguro English, and I'll see you in class.